Hello, this is Dr. Tapatiroyyadav, developmental therapist and wellness coach from IPS Academy, Indore. This particular episode is about the role psychology plays in our life. Consider this particular episode as a note of gratefulness, a thankful gesture towards the co-passenger with whom once I was traveling, and they were so confused. Why did I study psychology? How it helps the society? What difference would it make? Am I going to read their mind right there? I was so surprised to see that people have such kind of apprehensions when they come across a psychologist. I never studied psychology owing any of this. My point was like, how can psychology help me to be a better person, or maybe how can I help the society to be a better place to live in? So first thing first, psychology is study of behavior. It's not study of your mind. It's like, how do we perceive the stimulus and what kind of actions do we take in response to it, and how our behavior then create our situation. So it's mutual. Sometimes the stimulus in the situation provokes our behavior, and that is how we behave or how we are seen or labeled, and then again the way we behave changes the situation in response to our behavior, and then again we are being perceived as someone or other. Psychology is study of behavior that is observable. Rest of the things, and psychologists conclude with help of so many tests, which they do not do very often or spontaneously or for no reason. Imagine a person who is suffering fever would go to a physician, then they would be asked to get their some tests done, the blood report arrives, and then the doctor concludes what could be the problem and how it can be remedied. Similarly, a psychologist would not just go dissecting your thoughts or your try to study your brain or what thoughts are going inside you. They study the behavior that is manifested and observable, and if there is any sort of maladjustment, then probably they would suggest some kind of psychometric profiling, and then they would give you certain suggestion. You can say it's like equivalent to the prescription prescribed by the doctor, except for the fact that psychiatrists can prescribe medicine, psychologists cannot. But then it helps you. It helps you in understanding your own behavior, and it also gives you an understanding how you can control your behavior. Like if somebody already knows that they are short-tempered, and given a situation they can lose their temper way quickly, and then they react and they get aggressive, and how this aggression can be controlled. The minute they are told about this one tactic, how can you control your aggression, which would define your attitude, like anything that you are considering as your strong attitude can also be perceived as arrogance by the other person, and it should not be the case in a formal work situation or in any situation for that matter. Why should you be preferring to be labeled as an arrogant person? So how can you deal with it? If you know psychology, if you have read psychology, if there are certain strategies that helps you control your temper in given situation, which would not put you in awkward mode, then probably it's preferable that you read psychology, study your own behavior, and devise certain tactics that would help you adjust better in the society. That helps you organize your lifestyle. Likewise, people these days are full of complaint. They very frequently come to me and say that we are so stressed out at our workplace. We are so much under stress because we are not able to fulfill our commitment towards our family, and not being able to do justice to the role at workplace also. So how do we go ahead? My simple suggestion is there are certain tips, certain tricks. If you follow it, if you give yourself some time, then probably you can organize and prioritize your life, and then you can design your lifestyle which would keep you in best of your health, provided you make some effort. So organizing your lifestyle is of more importance, and for that you need to understand your own needs. So studying psychology or knowing a little bit of psychological needs which would keep you in a better frame, or which would keep you high on the priority list, probably would help you deal better in stressful situation. What is the importance of psychology is, one, if you have read psychology, if you know there are certain steps before you behave in certain way, like in very simpler term, there is a theory of SR theory. So there is a stimulus and then response. So stimulus could be anything, like you're feeling cold, so you would go and maybe pull out a sweater and wear it if the climate outside is colder. So thought process also behaves the same way, until and unless your thoughts are provoked. So those provoking situation, or provoking factors in the situation, or provoking people in the people's behavior that provokes you to think in certain way, they actually direct your thought process. So anybody towards whom if you are negatively disposed of, then whatever the other person does, probably he'll get angry. If you are neutral, there is huge chance that you will process the information first, and then accordingly would figure out what could be more helpful, and then probably you will implement your thought process and reach a decision. And then there are so many ifs and buts in between. There is always a stimulus and behavior. So thought processes, to ignite your thought process in particular direction, there will always be a stimulus, may it be a person or situation or something, some factor that is beyond your control. Next is relationship. The importance of psychology. Psychology plays great role when it comes to restore your relationship, or when it comes to define your relation with your fellow beings, family members, peers, friends, teachers, students, subordinates, juniors, superior. There are so many dimensions to a relationship. It is not always upward or downward or diagonal. There are so many dimensions, and at times probably you are dealing with 3 different people, and your behavior has to be in equilibrium, in balance with all 3. Probably there is one person with whom you are dealing in 5 different dimensions, like the same person can be your boss and maybe your friend as well. So depending on which place you are in, your behavior towards the person and towards the need of that situation would change. So if you are aware of certain psychological processes that would take place, eventually would take place, of course, if you are not answering to your boss in a way the person is expecting you to, despite the fact that you are otherwise a good friend, maybe could be a reason in future for a conflict. Then again you will be dealing with the conflict, which would create stress. So why go to that extent? Instead, have a little knowledge of psychological processes that takes place inside you and inside that person as well, and make sure that nothing occurs that creates conflict. If there is conflict, ongoing conflict, and which is like at many places, so you can be seen as a problematic person who is more into fight and argument, or maybe who is very strong example of disobedience, or maybe you are a person who is always labeled as arrogant, though you think that you speak out the right thing. You do not know how to put forward your thoughts in sugar-coated form. But it's not about what you think, it's also about what people see and perceive. So if you have a little knowledge of psychology and little knowledge of interaction and communication, how it plays role with perception, sensation, decision making, and all this thing, probably you can save your relationship in very little effort. Probably you can grow in your profession to much higher level. So it all depends on how you use that knowledge of psychology, because human resource is basically psychological capital of the organization and institution. They would always take care of you provided you know how to take care of yourself. So creating and recreating personality is essential element in today's world to progress in personal life and professional life both. How would you differentiate, like, this is your passion and this is what you want to do, and what if I read psychology and it doesn't lead me to any career? It would never be the case. If you are a psychologist, if you are a qualified psychologist, you can pursue your career as a researcher, wherein you can solely commit yourself to research. Most often anybody who is a qualified psychologist, given time for research, and mostly they turn into academician, they become professor, teacher, they write a lot of articles, they keep studying people's behavior, and come up with different theories of motivation and how organization would progress. So organizational development, communication, new ways of communication, how technology interferes with our thought processes, and all these things. So you can be a researcher, you can choose experimental psychology as your field of expertise. You can be a therapist, wherein you can help people deal with their disorders, dysfunctional behavior, or a broken personality. You can mend a broken personality. You can be voice of people, wherein you see that people are either underconfident or maybe a little more stubborn, who are not who find it very difficult to put across their thought process without getting into fight. So you can help them frame strategies wherein they can communicate in much smoother way without getting into any argument. You can be a counselor. Again, counselor, when I say it's therapist, you can be a developmental therapist like I do. I help people reach a little further from wherever they are right now. I find out ways and means like how they can polish their career and their presentation and their personality in much smoother way, add in much finer aspects to their personality. Also, you can be a clinical therapist, wherein you can help people, and the psychiatrist, you can get associated with some psychiatrist and you can help people figure out what they need and how they can resolve their conflicts. You can be a counselor. Now, psychological counselor, somebody who is qualified psychologist, can be a counselor in field of sports, health, education, career, in say day-to-day relationship counselor. So there are so many other activities you can take up which would help the society. Eventually it's going to help the society, because as a psychologist you will be dealing with living human being with their conflicts, wherein you are able to see the positive side of happenings, and you would be in a position where you can frame strategies that they can also focus on the positive output. Make a difference. Choose psychology as one of your subject, get qualified, acquire knowledge in that field, and then you can make difference in people's life. Start with yourself. There are so many questions that remains unanswered by the time we reach our early adulthood, that is as soon as we are out of this puberty phase or teenage phase, that is age 19, 20, 21 are 3 great years wherein we keep exploring everything: friendship, relationship, profession, qualification, and then we are left confused. There are so many questions unanswered. There are so many things, so many fights, wounds which are left open. Like in a relationship you were hurt but you never took initiative to close it. So there are so many aspects in life that are awaiting closures. So if you are little qualified in psychology, you can help yourself and your peer as such to figure out what is troubling them. And you can also suggest certain ways, you can mend those lives and add happiness to it. This others includes your family members, maybe your parents. By the time you reach that middle adulthood, or maybe even before that, you have there are people, I keep meeting people in my routine practice wherein they suddenly have this realization, oh God, we did not do put to our parents, oh God, I shouldn't have said this to my mom, or maybe, oh God, my father struggled so hard, I never realized. And then those wounds are left open in their lives. So you can help them come to terms with the fact. You can help people to come to terms with all kind of miseries in their life, and also help them design a new way or a new strategy to overcome that sorrow. If we are able to do it, if all of us have little bit of knowledge of psychology and how this psychological process takes place in our mind, how a little thing create difference in relationship, or how very small gestures can say fulfill our need, or a very small gesture can add happiness to somebody else's life, the society in general would become a better place to live in. Everybody is welcome to study psychology. I would suggest everybody should take up some sort of short-term course, or read psychological books, or read such books that helps you understand yourself, because the role psychology plays in your life is much more important and widespread than I could explain in this one video. So happy life, know yourself in a better way.